There's a couple of reports floating around about whether or not Sinner's actually going to be ready to play Cincinnati in a couple of weeks. He's undergone some tests over the last couple of days, and he has some more tests to come. Let's go have a look at what Eurosport have reported.
Jannik Sinner's US Open campaign has suddenly been thrown into doubt. After his latest knee injury setback forced him out of Cincinnati, questions are now exploding. Will Sinner be fit in time for the US Open? The latest update could change everything. He was supposed to be untouchable. Fresh off another Wimbledon title, sitting at the very top of the men's game, Jannik Sinner looked like a man with nothing left to prove this season. And then, out of nowhere, the story changed. A knee problem that started as a whisper has turned into the biggest question mark hanging over the entire US Open. Is the world number one about to walk into New York without a single match under his belt? Let's rewind and understand exactly how we got here, because this situation has been building for weeks, not days. Sinner's last competitive match was that Wimbledon final win over Alexander Zverev back in July. Since then, he has not played a single official match. Not one. For a player who is normally a constant presence on tour, that silence alone was enough to raise eyebrows. Then came the first crack in the armor. He withdrew from the Canadian Open in Montreal, a tournament that would have made him the first man in history to sweep every Masters 1000 event in a single season. That record was right there for the taking, and he had to let it go because of discomfort in his right knee. Fans tried to stay calm. Injuries happen. Players skip events all the time to manage their bodies. But then Cincinnati happened, and that's when the alarm bells really started ringing. Just days before the tournament, Sinner released a personal statement confirming he was pulling out of the Cincinnati Open as well. In his own words, he said his right knee had been bothering him, and that despite working closely with his medical team, he had to accept he simply wasn't ready to compete. He apologized to the tournament, thanked the organizers, and said his full focus now was on getting ready for the US Open. On the surface, that sounds like a routine withdrawal statement, but dig a little deeper, and the timeline tells a more concerning story. Reports suggest that talk of this knee issue actually started circulating even before the official announcements, with claims that his training sessions had been quietly scaled back and that a doctor from his personal medical team had been brought in for consultations. That kind of secrecy, especially around the game's top-ranked player, tends to fuel speculation rather than calm it. And here's the part that makes this even more dramatic. Sinner isn't just missing warm-up events for fun. Cincinnati was supposed to be his only tune-up before the US Open. Now he's heading into a Grand Slam, arguably the most physically demanding tournament on the calendar, without a single competitive match in over a month. No rhythm, no live match representatives, just training sessions behind closed doors and a knee that nobody outside his inner circle has been able to properly assess. Think about what that means for a hard-court slam. The US Open is fast, physical, and unforgiving on the joints. Players who arrive undercooked often pay for it in the second week, when legs get heavy and old injuries start talking back. Sinner has been the most dominant hard-court player in the world for the better part of 2 years. But dominance built on movement and explosiveness doesn't mean much if the body underneath it isn't cooperating. To add another layer to this, Sinner isn't the only top contender walking into New York with question marks. His fiercest rival, Carlos Alcaraz, has been dealing with his own injury saga, a wrist problem picked up back in Barcelona that has kept him out of action since April. Alcaraz also skipped Cincinnati as a precaution. So the two biggest stars in men's tennis right now, the two men most likely to meet in a Grand Slam final, are both walking into the tournament undercooked and carrying physical doubts. That's an incredible storyline on paper. But it also means this US Open could look very different from what everyone expected just a few weeks ago. Now, let's talk about what Sinner himself has said publicly, because his tone has been notably measured. He hasn't panicked. He hasn't dropped out of the US Open. In fact, every statement he has released has ended the same way, with confidence that he'll be ready when the tournament starts. That's either a genuinely positive sign from someone who knows his own body, or it's the kind of calculated messaging elite athletes give when they don't want to hand opponents any psychological advantage before a ball is even struck. And that's really the heart of the debate right now among fans and analysts. Is this knee issue something minor, the kind of maintenance problem top athletes deal with constantly and manage carefully through the season? Or is this something more serious that Sinner's camp is deliberately downplaying until they absolutely have to say otherwise? We won't know the real answer until he actually steps onto a court in New York. Until then, everything is speculation built on statements, body language from training clips, and reports from people close to the situation. What we do know is the stakes could not be higher. Sinner is defending elite ranking points. He's chasing back-to-back Grand Slam consistency at the very top of the sport, and is doing it all while carrying the extra pressure of an entire tennis world watching his every move, waiting to see if that right knee holds up under tournament pressure. If he walks out for his first round match moving freely, hitting his spots, and showing no hesitation, this entire storyline fades into the background almost instantly. Champions do that. They turn doubt into motivation and use it as fuel once the lights come on. But if there's any hesitation, any visible discomfort, any change in his usual explosive movement patterns, this tournament could turn into a completely different narrative. One where the biggest favorite in the draw becomes one of its biggest question marks. So here's what to watch for over these next couple of weeks. Keep an eye on any practice footage that leaks out from New York. Watch how Sinner moves in his first competitive match back after such a long layoff. And pay close attention to what his team says or doesn't say in the lead up to opening day. Because right now, nobody outside Jannik Sinner's inner circle actually knows how serious this knee injury is. Not the fans, not the pundits, maybe not even Sinner himself until he's tested it under real match pressure. One thing is certain though, the countdown to the US Open just became a lot more interesting than anyone expected. Make sure you're following along, because the moment Sinner steps back on court, we'll know exactly what kind of tournament this is really going to be.